If you've been wondering how are you going to get your baby to enter into your pelvis towards the end of your pregnancy or even when you're in labor, this is going to be the video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about all the things that you need to do to help your baby enter or engage into your pelvis. Hey, my name is Gina. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the founder here at MamasteFit, which is a perinatal fitness training company that also offers childbirth education courses and professional training courses. We offer prenatal and postpartum fitness training courses both online and in person here at a training facility in Aberdeen, North Carolina. And we also offer online childbirth education courses to teach you the science of birth so that you can feel empowered to approach your entire pregnancy and birth journey. In this video, we're going to talk about all the things that we need to do to create more space here in the top of the pelvis, known as the inlet of the pelvis, to then help your baby enter or engage into your pelvis, which is one of the first movements that they need to do to be able to enter and rotate through the pelvis during birth. So the first thing that's important to note is what is the top of the pelvis and how does the top of the pelvis open? So the top of the pelvis is known as the pelvic inlet. And so this is the pelvic brim where baby's going to first enter or engage into the pelvis. The pelvic inlet can open more with external rotation of the femurs or open hip positions. Think like deep squat type movements where the knees are moving away from midline. That is going to create more space side to side in the top of the pelvis. The next thing that we want to focus on is trying to create more space front to back. So movements like a posterior pelvic tilt, where you're tucking the butt underneath, can create more space from front to back in the pelvic inlet. So the combination of external rotation of the femurs or wide knees and that posterior pelvic tilt or tucking the butt underneath can help to create more space in the top of the pelvis to allow your baby to enter into the pelvis. The next thing that's important is an anterior pelvic tilt or arching in the back can change the pelvic bone angle. So it can sometimes make it easier for baby to enter into the pelvis. And so when we're thinking of opening the top of the pelvis, we're focusing on wide knee type movements in addition to pelvic tilting type movements. So we have that posterior pelvic tilt that's creating more space front to back, but also that anterior pelvic tilt that's making it easier for baby to enter into the pelvis by changing the pelvic angle. And so with all of that in mind, it's important that we can accomplish all of these movement patterns to allow our baby to enter into the pelvis. And so we want to ensure that we can find wide knee movement patterns, or we can spread the knees wide to create that space in the top of the pelvis. We also want to make sure that we can easily tuck our butt underneath to create that posterior pelvic tilt to create more space front to back, and then also be able to find that anterior pelvic tilt or arching in the back. And so generally we want to be able to find wide leg type motions in addition to pelvic tilting type motions. During pregnancy, it's typically a lot easier for us to find that external rotation of femurs. It's a common postural habit that a lot of us just take on during pregnancy. So a lot of us just tend to have more external rotation here at the hip. In addition, a lot of us tend to arch more in our low back, known as lumbar lordosis. So this means there's more of a curvature here in the lumbar spine or the lower spine. And so the combination of the external rotation of the femurs and that anterior pelvic tilt, we already got 2 or 3 movements going for us to create more space to allow our babies to enter into the pelvis. However, that posterior pelvic tilt or tucking the butt underneath may be more challenging to find during pregnancy. And so let's go over some movements that are going to help you create more space front to back and find that posterior pelvic tilt so we can create the space to allow our baby to enter into our pelvis. So the first thing that we want to think about is what muscles are attaching to the backside of the pelvis that could help us pull the pelvis into that posterior pelvic tilt, or maybe pulling us more into that anterior pelvic tilt. So remembering that our muscles only have the ability to pull, not push. And so we need to release the muscles that are really pulling our pelvis into more of that anterior pelvic tilt, and then strengthen the muscles to help us tuck our butt underneath a little bit more. And so because we favor more of this extended spine position, we tend to have very tight lats or back musculature that's pulling the pelvis more forward. So movements like the forward leaning lat stretch can help us to release that tension in the backside of the body. And so to do this movement, you're going to place both your hands into a wall in front of you. You're going to hinge the hips back. So you're going to walk the hips back until you make a 90-degree angle with your body. From there, you're going to put more weight into one hand as you step the feet perpendicular. And so the hand that you're pushing more weight into, the toes are going to be pointing towards that. And that's the side body that you're going to feel stretching a lot more. From here, push the chest away from the floor, and we're going to have a little bit more of an increased stretch in that side body lot. Really focus on trying to keep the chest pointing down to the floor throughout the duration of this movement. You'll hold this for about 10 breaths. Each breath, inhale, feeling those ribs expand, and we're stretching more in the side body. And then exhale, try to compress a little bit more in the opposite side to bring you deeper into that stretch. And then you can do this on both sides. It should feel like a really good lat stretch, and it's one of my favorite lat stretches to do. The next muscles that we want to be thinking about that are pulling our pelvis into more of that anterior pelvic tilt are going to be the muscles on the front side of the thigh. And so we want to think about releasing the hip flexors and the quadricep muscles. And so by doing a hip flexor release or a quad release, it's going to allow us to bring our pelvis more into that posterior pelvic tilt by releasing that pull that the muscles have on the front side of the body. So movements like the half kneeling hip flexor stretch can be a great option. So you'll come into a half kneeling position. You're going to tuck the butt underneath, and then you're going to push the hips forward to feel a big stretch in the front side of that thigh. From there, you can reach up that same side arm overhead, and then just kind of lean away to feel a little bit more stretch in that side body. And you'll hold this for about 10 breaths as well, and then you can do it on the other side. For the quad stretch, we have a few different variations. The first recommendation is I'm going to say to put something underneath the knee. The knee pushing into the ground can be really uncomfortable in this movement. So put like a soft pad underneath your knee. The first variation is just to reach back and grab your foot with one hand or with both, and you're going to bring that foot towards your butt. From there, tuck the butt underneath, and then try to keep that foot in contact with your butt or pull it as close as you can to feel a stretch throughout the length of the front side of the thigh. The next variation is to place your foot on an elevated surface, so like a couch or a bench. And same thing, I'm going to tuck my butt underneath as I push my hips towards my foot or my foot towards my hips to feel the stretch throughout the front side of my thigh. And so both of these stretchers are going to help to release that pull on the front side of the body that's pulling that pelvis into that anterior pelvic tilt. So the combination of releasing the lats and also releasing the hip flexors and quads is going to allow our pelvis to come into more of that posterior pelvic tilt now. And so now we want to think about what muscles can we strengthen to help pull our pelvis into more of that posterior pelvic tilt. And so the muscles that are going to help to pull the pelvis into more of that posterior pelvic tilt are going to be our hamstrings and our adductors. So the muscles on the back side of the thigh and on the inside of the thigh as well. And so with the hamstrings, we're going to be thinking about deadlifting or hinge type motions to help strengthen those muscles to pull them into more of a posterior pelvic tilt. So really any deadlift variation or hinge focus exercise is going to help to strengthen the hamstrings. It can be things like barbell deadlifting even throughout pregnancy. Watch our video on modifications for the deadlift throughout pregnancy that we'll link in the show notes below. We can also be doing things like single leg deadlifts or stagger stance deadlifts if you need a little bit more support, or even poor man's leg curls can be another really great option for you to do during your pregnancy to help you pull that pelvis into more of a posterior pelvic tilt. The other thing that we want to be thinking about is we want these abdominals to help pull the pelvis upwards, but with pregnancy, the abdominals are really over lengthened and it can be really hard to feel like you're pulling the pelvis upward. So I tend to find that focusing on strengthening the back side of the body, like those hamstrings and adductors, can really help you with that posterior pelvic tilt movement. So the next thing that we can do to help us find more of that posterior pelvic tilt is going to be pelvic tilting type movements. And so one of my favorite movements to do is going to be an all fours hip shift with pelvic tilts. So you'll take a yoga block or a surface that's about 2 to 3 inches in height, place it underneath one knee. From there, you're going to shift your weight over that block, and then you're going to feel more of a stretch in kind of that back hip pocket. From there, we're going to do some pelvic tilts. You're going to arch your back up towards the ceiling like you're rounding in the back, and you're going to feel a more intense stretch on that elevated hip side. From there, you're going to drop the belly down to the floor, and you should feel a little bit more of like a groin or hip flexor type stretch on the opposite side. And then you're going to continue to do about 10 repetitions and then switch sides. Now, with this type of pelvic tilting motions, because we're in an asymmetrical stance, it's going to allow you to move a lot deeper into this movement. And so if you're finding that posterior pelvic tilt is feeling really challenging or restricted to you, so it feels very sticky, what you can do is you can take a full cycle of breath in that posterior pelvic tilt. So you'll arch in your back or round in the back up towards the ceiling, and you're going to pause there. Take a big inhale to really feel that space expand. And then exhale, try to move a little bit deeper into it. So when we exhale, the rib cage and pelvis can pull a little bit closer to one another and allow you to move deeper into that posterior pelvic tilt. And then drop the belly down to the floor, come back, and then try again for a full cycle of breath. So just spending more time in this posterior pelvic tilt can be really helpful for you to release any restrictions and to help you be able to find that movement. And so if you want to help your baby engage into the pelvis, we want to create more space in the top of the pelvis or that pelvic inlet. And so we want to think wide knee type motions such as deep squat movements. We also want to think pelvic tilting, so both the anterior pelvic tilt and more importantly, that posterior pelvic tilt, which may be more challenging for you to find during pregnancy. And so in order to find that posterior pelvic tilt, we want to think release the lat or the back musculature and release the hip flexors and quads to make it easier for your pelvis to shift into that posterior position. And then we want to think about strengthening the muscles that can help pull that pelvis into that posterior pelvic tilt. So we're thinking hamstring and adductors to help pull that pelvis and tuck it underneath. Then we can incorporate some hip shifted pelvic tilts to allow us to increase that pelvic mobility and then pausing at any points during the movement that you feel a little bit more sticky. And so with just those exercises, it can make it easier for you to create more space in the top of your pelvis to then allow your baby to enter or engage into that pelvis to begin their rotation through the pelvis. If you want more, be sure to check out the MamasteFit Birth Prep Circuit. We have it in a playlist on our YouTube channel so you can see all the movements that we recommend to make it easier for baby to enter and to rotate through your pelvis. In our Birth Prep Circuit, we're really looking at the movement patterns that are a little bit more challenging to find during pregnancy and making it easier for those movements to be achievable for you, which includes a posterior pelvic tilt and internal rotation at the hip. If you want more workouts that are going to help to open your pelvis and prepare you for birth while also keeping you strong and comfortable throughout your pregnancy, be sure to check out our online prenatal fitness programs. Our prenatal fitness programs are offered in the Team Builder app and as on-demand videos. And so if you prefer to work out at your own pace, be sure to check out our Team Builder app versions, which is our prenatal strength programs. This program is going to sync to your week of pregnancy. So if you're 20 weeks, it's going to start at week 20. And it's going to progress from there, offering different modifications and pelvic opening workouts. In the third trimester, our programming is going to include more pelvic opening workouts, more labor preparation workouts, and then also beginning to taper in preparation for birth so that you can be ready for the big day. Our on-demand videos are going to be full-length workout videos that you can follow along as you work out at the same time. So if your preference is to watch a video as you work out, that program is going to be a great option for you. If you want daily workouts to guide you through your pregnancy to keep you strong, comfortable, open your pelvis, and also prepare you for birth, be sure to join our prenatal fitness program. You can grab a sample of our prenatal fitness programs to see which of the variation works best for you, and we'll link that in the notes below. So thanks for watching this video all about how to help your baby enter or engage into the pelvis. We're thinking about creating more space in the top of the pelvis or the pelvic inlet, and we hope these exercises help you out. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can be notified whenever we release new videos. We release tons of videos about pelvic mechanics or how to create more space in your pelvis, prenatal fitness tips, and postpartum fitness tips. Plus, we offer a weekly podcast. Wednesdays, we offer educational videos, and then Fridays is going to be a birth story. So be sure to like and subscribe. If you loved this video or you want more, be sure to comment and let us know what you're looking for.